Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another Art of the Game over here at Cabbit Crescent, and we're talking GMing. And Woody, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the choice and the importance of free will, though my original title might be the illusion of free will. So it's an important topic actually because it's kind of been an ongoing discussion as that we record these episodes is like, how the GM prepping and also giving the players the ability to participate in the story. But the thing about choice, which is interesting, is that when you're making a choice, the only choices that matter are the ones that you make, right? And so what you have to do in order to engage a player in the story, the ultimate goal is to get them to make decisions rather than to trap them in having too many, right? And to
be clear, that's different than real life, because in real life, the choices you don't make have a big role too. But in D&D, sure, you want to focus on the choices they actually make.
Correct. Yeah. They have to participate, which means they have to make decisions. And how you set these choices up is actually very critical. Pay no attention to the woman in the background. No. And so, but like there's another point is like, where does free will come into it, right? And so, like the players have to be free to participate, and they have to be free to choose to participate or not, right? So it's like, if you're going to have a direction that you want the campaign to go, you have to first grant the players the choice of whether or not they want to do it, right? And you have to be willing to pivot either way. And even if the choice is ultimately like you're still going to have the same bad guy down the line, like there's an element of free will in this, but also there's technique where you can also get them to make a choice when there was only ever one outcome. And there's ways to get them to make the choice you want them to make, right? But you still have to get them to engage with this decision-making process, or the game just doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I told you wouldn't know where I was going with this.
Well, it kind of still did, but it is different. The thing that I don't like is when people say that there is no like real choice and that they're just being led down somewhere. They're being almost, I don't want to say fooled to be led down the way they're supposed to go, but they're being bumped in like a bumper on a bumper bowling. Yeah.
Rails.
Yeah. And it's not really true because one, the players actually could choose evil. It's actually kind of like real life. You can always choose evil, and in real life it gets obviously murky, but in games it doesn't so much. But do
you have much experience, Greg?
You can always your players could always choose to let the villain do what they want, right?
Yeah.
And they won't, and that's fine. But that is an act of free will in a way. But also, there's just so many decisions on how to get there where they will have complete free will as well, and that's what you're kind of getting at. And that's where I completely agree. And then there's also open worlds where. Oh, yes, that's fine. And then there's also open worlds where you just have factions and their backstories are kind of driving where it's going, and you're just making up these things on the fly. And that, that's just a free world chaotic mess, a free will chaotic mess, right? And that's fine too if that's what you want to do. That's not for everyone, by the way. A lot of players do not do well in open worlds. No. But it depends.
They really need to set a story direction, right? But like I've had campaigns where I was going to do something, right? And I said, okay, this is what I'm setting up. And once the players actually are seeing what I'm setting up, they're like, well, screw that, and they do not want to do it. They either, because there was one where I was going to try to like have them get access to a submarine, and they were going to travel around the world in the submarine, and they were like, no, and they set the submarine. They basically rated it for all the technology that it had to offer, and then they set it on a self-destruct course and just programmed it to go start attacking a battleship, and that they didn't like, and that's suddenly like, okay, new campaign, and so yeah, and like it is important because like you, as I mentioned in previous episode, you might roll out your big bad, right? And like, oh, here's the big necromancer. Oh, I'm going to kill you all, right? And then like, yeah, that's going to be like, this is the bad guy you guys will eventually defeat. The only thing you can be sure of in that situation is that they are going to go the other direction, and they're going to avoid this guy because you have this level 20 guy with godlike power, and they're level 1. They have no hope of ever beating this guy. for years, right? So like they are not going to engage, and they will probably run away from that campaign. And all you've done is you set yourself up for failure, right?
Yeah. And
so you have to grant that the players choose what the campaign is going to be.
And that's what I'm saying. You can't have an open world where you listen to the characters' backstories, basically. They will actually come up with villains for you, by the way, in their backstories often. And you just and in that you have almost absolute free will, because they're literally you're literally the narrator at that point, and they're the ones driving the story. And that's fine too if you have players that can actually do that well and stuff. It's not for everyone at all. But but even like you said, even when you have a very specific quest in mind, in your mind, and you're trying to get them motivated to do that, you're trying to hook it up to the backstory, stuff like that. Even when they defeat the big baddie, it's like, what do they do? If it's a pirate, what do they do with the ship? Do they become pirates?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
And you may not want them to have that ship, but they do, right? And but there's also a point of like what form of choice takes. And one thing that I've seen many times is if they have too many choices, you can actually get them paralyzed with indecision.
Yes.
And there's an important lesson here that anytime you are posing a choice, like there's a decision that must be made, it always has to be binary, whenever possible, right? Like give them, it's a yes or a no, a right or a left. And it's fine if there's like we have a puzzle and there's 3 doors and you have to pick one. That's totally fine, right? Because that's dungeon design. But like if you have an important plot, if you're at a crossroads, you need them to make a decision. You have to pose that choice to them, and you should always pose 2 choices. And it should be, do we follow this guy or not? Is it right or left? Yes or no? Are you going to do this thing or not? You can agree to these terms, yes or no. And if you can pose a yes or no question every time, you will inevitably get an answer. And
that's interesting.
And you have to be willing to go with whichever way they go. And it won't always be a situation where that the room you want them to be in is going to be over here. The bad guy will not always be in the direction they go. And you have to grant them that, right? And their decisions have to have consequences.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a scenario where they could get a lot of allies, and when you give them like all these type of allies they could pull in, I've ran this campaign 3 times, and every single time they pick no allies. But if you come up and you be like, okay, this ally or this ally, but they will not work together and they hate each other, which one are you going to choose? Then they'll pick one, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And and there's also an interesting point where you can it's kind of like there's an idea called the magician's force. I don't actually know how it works, but it basically deals with a way where you can get somebody to pick the card you want them to pick. But by the way you're fanning the deck, and it's like I've seen a guy do it. It's amazing. I don't know why I'm picking it, but I know it works, right? And it actually, but that principle does apply to role playing games too, because when you want them to, well, it absolutely does. Because like when you want them to make a decision, and you're posing these choices to them, like you can pose the choices in a way that it gets them to make the right decision, right? Like when you're describing the choice, you can clearly describe one as more appealing, right? Putting more description into the one you like, or you simply remind them about the consequences of these things. You make sure that they don't forget things that they may have forgotten in the story, right? These decisions are tied to these plot points, or literally build it in a way where, like, you make you have a decision to make, and full well that one of these is going to have a dramatic effect of the campaign, and the other will have a dramatic effect of this other one, and clearly one of them forwards their own interests, right? And these are important techniques to bear in mind, because you can once you get good at it, you can lead the story in the direction you want it to go, and it'll always go where you want it to go, as long as they've chosen to engage. Yeah.
The one thing I probably overuse, but it's fun to use and it's so useful, is tell your players the dreams they have. But especially if something ties into their backstory that you think, that should make them do the thing that you want them to do, you can give them like a dream, put them in an area, have a dramatic thing happen to them, and then it doesn't have to make complete sense. It's a dream. And then that will motivate the player to put it in their mind as like, oh yes, that is my motivation. I do want to go do that, that often helps.
But there also has to be an interaction component too. Like when you do the dream, like there has to be some part of that dream where they are deciding what to do or rolling dice or impacting it. Yeah.
If it's a long dream sequence, if it's a quick thing, whatever. But if it's like a more extended one, for sure, you need to have them interact and make choices within the dream, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that scene in Final Fantasy VII where Cloud is recounting his past and his return to Nibelheim, and you're playing through it, and then it obviously didn't happen the way he's saying it did. But like, I like where you're getting to play that flashback sequence and actually do it, and then somebody's, wait, you actually went into my house? Oh no, I didn't. It's like, yeah.
I remember that now. Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. But yeah, it's like those sorts of interactions are quite fun.
People think that when it comes to video games, everyone's always like, oh, the player has to agency, their choices need to matter and stuff like that.
No,
and that's true. They often don't in video games, but it is true that your choices do need to matter, but they don't need to matter necessarily. Depending on the type of game you have, you can have it to where every choice they make completely drives who even the main baddie is, whatever. Or you can just have it so that every choice they make is like solving a puzzle, right? And that you kind of know exactly the way it's going to go, and it's just solving a puzzle to get there. And that's fine too. That's like a dungeon crawler or something like that. But and then you have everything in between. So I think the first bullet point is that there's all sorts of choices and free will. You don't need to necessarily to say, oh, there's no free will because I couldn't go and become king, right? Like you can, there's free will at every single level. There's when motivating players to try to get them to go to where you want to go, just think of that character's motivation and sometimes remind them of the motivation and things like that, right? And then the other thing I just wrote down here is there's, even if you think there's no free will when it comes to what they're doing, just keep in mind, you as a player could always choose to join the villain. It's not something that you probably want to play. I'm just saying the choice is theoretically there. And so even that ultimate choice is still technically there, and you're choosing not to because it's more fun, in my opinion, to play an epic campaign than a stupid villain campaign. But
and choosing not to engage is still a choice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. well, another thing that will happen too is that you're going to encounter players that I'm running into this right now periodically with players who are also GMs, where they're like, they're having fun, but like, yeah, I know the score. I'm a GM too, right? And it's like, yeah, obviously we're doing your story and we're having fun, but we know we want you to go. You want us to go here. I'm like, no, I don't. It's like you sometimes have to remind them that it's not fixed and set in stone. Because like a lot of the decisions you make about the game are made week to week, and most will be like you, as I've said before, you will often have a situation where you end the game in a way where you cannot know what's going to happen next week, and you are on your improv game hardcore next week, and so like their choices are absolutely powerful. Like the players' choices actually are the most powerful ones, and they define what the game's going to be. And so it's not a bad thing to remind them that fact that you don't have it set in stone, you aren't controlling it so precisely, and they are an equal participant in what the story is going to be.
And like I said before, there is different types of people like different things, for sure. Like I said before, the open world versus more railroad dungeon dive, and that's fine. But even to the point where if I'm playing a character, I'm not notorious for strategic thinking or thinking things through before my character does something as much as I should, right? So if I was a player for a GM, they could probably get something superficial that my character's just going to dive at, possibly, and go into it without too much thinking. And that is a form of choice that I'm doing through my character versus someone like, I don't know, Chaz maybe, or someone else where they are actually very analytical. They're thinking step by step. And that's the way that they enjoy doing things, right? That's the type of choices they like to make, is strategic, conscious, and do it, right? So even with your players, you can recognize what type of player they are, and you give them those type of choices. You put those type of choices in front of them.
Yeah,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
can know what they're going to do, probably.
Well,
Yeah.
there are people that that's actually an important point. I that does need to be brought up, is that like reading the room, right? Like, as I keep saying, because like as you've got more experience with your players, you will discover that certain people are going to that certain people are going to do certain kinds of things, and if you want to influence the course of the game, you can also play to type and create a situation where this guy's going to react a certain way. Like my friend Jeff, which I like to bring up, he's always belligerent towards authority. It's like clockwork, right? So if you want to create chaos, deliberately throw that situation in. You and you also know, like, this guy is also always going to grab on or bite the plot hook. And so if you want a decision to be made, pose it to the guy that will bite, right? And don't give it to the paranoid person. But once somebody's engaged, that paranoid player is probably gonna have to go along. Because the people that are going to be hypercritical, the people that overanalyze, the people that are going to be suspicious, right? And
are the ones that don't share information they get.
Yes, and well, like I'm notorious for overthinking things. Like I like, particularly like if I've got a brand new game master, I'm playing with this kid who doesn't know what he's doing. He's just learning, right? I mean, I'm going to approach the game from like a very plausible, kind of a hypercritical viewpoint, where I want the kind of experience that I'm giving other people, which of course I'm never going to get. So I should stop doing that. But like, like I have a hard time with games where they stick where it's the quality of the storytelling is literally movie of the week, right? Like sci-fi channel stuff. And so, but like, you have to learn to play to type. Like, don't make me make the decision about that if I behave that way. And so, once somebody else has accepted this decision or this course of action, I'm kind of forced to be along for the ride because I'm part of the party.
Yeah. And most players are going to go along to a certain extent because we're playing a game. They're not fictionally just sitting around in a bar going, "Wow, what am I going to do around today? I guess I'll just drink." They're looking for action. They're looking for something.
For sure. Yeah, no, absolutely.
There are those type of players. We should probably have one of these on types of players. Now I think about it, because there are very clear types of players I found that you can really categorize and deal with them differently.
And what to do
what
with
type
these
of player am I, Greg?
Yeah. I know my type of player.
You are the
chaotic
emotionally
dumb.
you are the emotionally stable one, Marks.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. My Bruce might not be.
Bruce.
Bruce.
But I
think that's true.
Well, where this loops around is, I guess like the bottom line of it is that like you have to give a person a choice, whatever it is, and the only choices that matter are the choices they make for themselves. And like, rather than railroading them into a situation where they're forced to do something, orchestrate the situation where they choose to do it, right? And like, if you want them to rescue the princess, well, set up this character as an important plot point for them. Like, develop the relationship, then get the princess in danger. They want to rescue her, right? Even if it's only for the political gain and the reward that would come, right? But like, rather than, I mean, of course, you can start out with like, okay, this is your quest, you rescue the princess, or you can be set it up, right? And so anytime you could get them to make a choice to engage with the plot, that will be a stronger relationship with the story because they clearly wanted to do it.
And just to get people commenting, if you're one of those people who thinks that it's just an illusion of free will in these games and that they're always going to do the same thing no matter what, write why you think so, because I actually fundamentally disagree with that. And I think the fact that we have dice and choices, and it could be anywhere from a choice of which door you go through, which rock you pick up, to which city we're going to travel to which king we're going to overthrow. So they're all over the place, and I don't think it's an illusion. So comment if you disagree.
Dice is the ultimate equalizer. And like, as a GM, you can also, like, if you need something to happen, create the set of circumstances where the players have to make that choice. It's the only logical one, but they may still not make that choice. No matter how much work you put into forcing the issue to make them want to do it, they might still choose something else. And
like you said, try to make it a simple binary choice if you can. Even if it is a binary choice that you give them, be open to the fact that they're going to find that third choice they didn't think of, which is great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, they absolutely will.
So,
and you might also have a player who wants to create a chaotic situation just because he thinks it's fun. And
there are players like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. There are. Yeah. I've got a couple of those right now. But yeah, it's just go with it, run with it. Whatever they choose, run with it. And you may not always be able to loop it back to what you want, but who cares? You know,
I played in a campaign as a player with a character who pretty much every time we go up to like, here's some water or here's this fruit or whatever, they automatically eat it or drink it. And seems unwise.
Yeah. Oh no, I had a guy do that one time, and he took a cup of cyanide alcohol, and character dropped dead immediately.
Yeah.
That is a whole story for another day. Yeah.
But what I like to do if I'm building an adventure is I like to give hooks or choices that where maybe it takes you off on a side quest or it's a little side thing, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I know it's going to eventually loop back around to whatever the original quest was.
Yeah.
I mean, you're all existing in the same world in a small amount of space, so it makes a lot of sense that you're going to cross paths. So
totally.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and don't be afraid to, when they make these choices, to embrace the chaos, introduce new players, or start your first session.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the players of the story, right? And they should be defining what that story becomes.
Yeah.
And Greg is referencing past episode, just so you know.
Yeah. And remember, you as a DM or GM, you are more of a narrator than a story writer. That's
well, if you want the control that a novelist has, then write a novel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is a different medium. It's a medium that runs on its own rules and its own laws, and it has its own structures. And these have evolved over time, but some of them are just natural extensions of what we're doing. It's like it always works this way, and it is an interactive storytelling medium. You do not have control over what will happen, and you need to get used to that idea real fast if you're going to be the game master, and you will have a lot more fun if you do.
And that's a big part of the fun for a GM. If all you did was build scenarios and play it completely the way you want to control it and everything, it wouldn't be fun. It'd be boring.
I mean, if you're just doing a dungeon dive, I mean, full disclosure, when I was growing up, I used to just pick random monsters from the monster manual. We just fight them, right? Like there'd be no role playing and stuff like that. And it's fun. You get experience. You roll on equipment table. You get better equipment. Whatever. If that's what you want to do, have fun with it. But what we're talking about here is an actual like story, role playing, seeing what your players do, and go jiving with it, whatever.
Yeah, and it's chaotic. It's random. It's unexpected, and your fun as a game master comes from seeing how it's going to turn out, right? You've got this envision, you try to create this story with the guys, and you got this idea, you got this vision, and the fun is, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Like this sucker is the ultimate equalizer for everybody. You don't know whether it's going to be a 1 or it's going to be a 20 or something in between, right? And it's like, it is just as exciting for you for the same reason it's exciting for the players, is they don't know how it's going to turn out either. And if they did, it would be boring and they wouldn't show up.
And if you're a player and you can't figure out which way to go or a choice you're making, don't be afraid to just roll for it.
Yeah.
Use the equalizer.
But keep the choices simple. Keep them binary. Don't give them, it's one thing if you're in a dungeon, you've got 3 hallways, you have to pick one, sure. But in terms of like just storyline, don't give them too many choices.
And even in the hallway scenario, try never to make it a choice random and pointless, because that will really eat at your players. Like if there's 2 doors and there's no way they can figure out anything about the door, it's not nice, because you're just asking them to pick one randomly, and it's awkward. Make it so maybe one door is locked, one door has tracks going down it, one door has a claw mark, something like that.
And you can find the key in the other room that's open, but every door should go somewhere important. They should have something fun behind the door.
Yeah. And always make it an actual choice where they can actually use their brain to think about why they might go one way or the other, right? You don't want it just be like, oh, I just pick one randomly.
Yeah.
Just try to make sure, the choices propel the story forward.
Yes.
So if you keep doing that, then you'll enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
So
leave it to Marks to bring up the most obvious thing we should have said at the beginning.
Yes. Wait, it's a good way to end it. Put that at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna fix it in post. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for Art of the Game this time. Choice and the importance of free will. So make sure to leave comments. Let us know what you think. We'll respond and join the conversation. So,
and if you disagree with us, still leave a like for some reason. Tell me why you disagree, and I'll argue with you in the comments.
Yeah. And remember, if you subscribe, you'll know when we come off new episodes. So,
absolutely.
And then you can give hateful comments. Then no, I'm joking.
we're gonna get those anyways, Greg. It's fine.
All right. Well, see you, everybody.
When the dice roll high, we touch the sky. But when they crash, it's a barely laugh. Genre play lighting the way. Our tales unleash the wild round.